I reprogrammed my subconscious to give me the life that I want. Because otherwise, I was going to keep choosing based on replicating the past. In our first year, we turned over $1 million in 2000, which is a lot for a hair salon in 2000. Within 3 years, we had like 14 staff. We actually made the first sulfate and paraben-free shampoo. All the chemists told me it wasn't possible, and so I actually just went online, found a recipe, bought myself a bit of a lab equipment and started to make them in the kitchen. I kind of fell into the hairdressing industry, and then I was like, wow, the smell and fumes of hair color is a lot. We were in small spaces and I was like, oh my God. And the forehead and the scalp is 60% more absorbent than the legs and arms. It's about getting out of your own way. Like if you can get to know yourself better and know how your brain works and then know where the blockages are, then move yourself out of your own way.
How often do you guys sell a product now?
It's like every 8 seconds.
You're not following the crowd, trying to get into retailers. It just goes to show you build a great product or a specific group of people that solves a genuine problem and the people will come.
And they said air is seeping in there, the glue isn't tight enough, the adhesive isn't working. I said, can you just tell me what do you mean? And they said the whole shipment is like a ticking time bomb to go off.
What do you think was the hardest personal truth that you had to confront going on this journey? All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. This is no exaggeration. This was one of my favorite episodes, not of the year, of all time. We had Jose Bryce Smith, the founder of O&M, on the podcast. For those that don't know, I mean, all the girls will know O&M. For the guys that are listening or the girls that don't, they sell one product every 8 seconds. But this episode was about so much more than just the products and the numbers, the mindset, the journey, the perspectives, and some of the secret techniques she shares and speaks about in this episode is mind-blowing. I'm so inspired. It's rare that I'm that inspired from a guest as I was from Josie. So I know you guys are going to absolutely love this episode. Before we get into it, can I ask for a few favors? If you're watching on YouTube, we're on the road to 5K. I know we're going to get there soon. Can you please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? We have so many amazing guests coming up that I don't want you guys to miss. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave me a 5-star review, one, I want you to know that really helps the podcast grow. And two, I really do appreciate it. It takes you a few seconds and it means the world to me. Thanks, guys. Let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome back. Another episode. I've been really buzzing and really excited about this one. The more research I've done, the more I couldn't wait for this moment to come. So a lot of the girls will know who's sitting across from me, Jose Bryce Smith, the founder of O&M. For the guys that don't know O&M, obviously they're not spending as much time in hair salons. It's an absolute icon in the world, in the hair world. Now O&M is now stocked in over 50,000 hairdressers. Crazy, in over 20 countries, and the business has grown 4 times. So 4 times the size in just the last 4 years. I know I'm embarrassing you, Josie, saying those sort of things, but just to show who's sitting across from me and what sort of scale of business you've built over the last really 20, 25 years of your journey. It's really, really impressive. It's not your everyday business. I want to say thank you so much for coming and super grateful for Billy putting us in touch and bringing you before us, because I think it's an amazing journey and I can't wait to talk about it all. So thank you and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I've been listening to some of your episodes and I love how many scruffy entrepreneurs that you interview. So yeah, I'm very honored to be here.
We were just like, we always do this with a lot of the guests. I would feel like we could have started recording and did like a 15-minute pre-podcast. So great chats already. And I love the way you think about not only business, but health and family and all of that. I think you seem like a very well-rounded human being. And they're my favorite sort of entrepreneurs. You see the ones that are just all financially motivated and everything's balance sheets and P&Ls and dollars and cents. But I think you seem like someone that isn't driven financially. You're driven by purpose. And I think that's where I want to start with you really. Now, I was speaking about the fact that O&M, you're at the forefront really pioneering the clean beauty trend, the clean beauty movement before anyone. And you were saying people used to think you were crazy. But I guess that whole like inspiration to start for you didn't come off a whim. There were some deeper reasons that kind of inspired you to get into that space. Talk us through, and for the people that aren't aware, like what made you so passionate about clean beauty and clean products and getting all the toxic chemicals out of our bodies and out of the products we use as much as we can?
Yeah, so it's been a journey since I was a child. My dad died of cancer when I was 17 and they actually found aluminium in his armpits. And he said to me, don't use an aluminium deodorant. And I was like, what? And he was like, just look at deodorants. They've got aluminium in it and they found it in my armpits. And My mum was always into kind of natural and more low chemical solutions. And she brought us up that way. And I think it's just always been in my DNA. And when I started in the hairdressing industry, I kind of fell into the hairdressing industry because I married a hairdresser. He opened a salon. I was actually in marketing and I started to work on the reception. And then I was like, wow, the smell and fumes of hair color is a lot. There was perms and we were in small spaces. And I was like, oh my God. And the forehead and the scalp is 60% more absorbent than the legs and arms. So I was like, okay, so they're putting this dark hair color on people's heads, which is going through their bodies, in through their endocrine systems and out through their bladder. And I was like, wow, they're going to find out that breathing that in and putting that on people's heads is toxic. And that was sort of what started me on the journey. And hairdressers with contact dermatitis, like the amount of hairdressers that have eczema and dermatitis and hands are like bleeding and rough. And so really I was just solving a problem. And also I loved hairdressers. I love them still. They're my tribe. And I never really felt like I belonged at school. And then when I came into hairdressing, I was like, oh, wow, these are my people. They're so fun and creative. And it's such a great environment. And the clients are so lovely. And why is it such an underrated industry? I mean, we're wearing it on our heads, like why are we, and hairdressers are like an extension of people's family. They go through everything in the life with their clients. And so I suppose I started to advocate for them by making these products.
I was having, I'm obviously a guy, as you can see. And I live in Newtown. So there's like so many different barbers and hairdressers all around. And I've my whole life gone to barbers, and since moving to Newtown, like I had my old friend who used to cut my hair, and once you find a good hairdresser that knows how to cut your hair, you never want to change that if you don't have to. So I bounced around to a bunch of different barbers in Newtown, and no offense if anyone's listening that cut my hair, there was so hit and miss. So I went to like a proper hair salon to start getting my hair cut by hairdressers, like paying up a bit more for the experience, and it's completely changed my life. And I was having the same conversation with him that you mentioned on one of the podcasts I was listening to you. They're an industry full of unpaid therapists, and I think that's really underestimated. I say, don't you get so exhausted by the end of the day because you're not only standing and physically cutting and thinking and analyzing, doing that, but you're talking all day about like, so sometimes people are opening up and he's telling them people are talking about deaths in the family and like personal mental health struggles, and it can be a really full on space. And I know you were talking about just before offline, the role that your therapist and business coaches has played in your development. How would you go to explain the impact that working with a therapist and business coach has had on your journey before we start talking about the business stuff? Because as we both agreed before, your business is a reflection of yourself.
Yeah, totally. If I can make a comment about the hairdressers being the unpaid therapists, like I completely agree. And actually, during COVID, I got my therapist, I did an interview with her on my podcast where I said to her, okay, people are going to go to the hairdressers is going to be the first place they go coming out of COVID. And they're going to have been stuck with their partner who maybe they've been having some conflict with, and their children. So they're going to come in and they're going to dump all their stuff on their hairdresser. So how do you hold on to yourself when people are dumping their stuff? So she gave me a couple of techniques, and one was you have a pad and paper out the back, and when the client leaves, you go and write it down on the paper. And so then it belongs to the paper and it takes it out of you, because you can get very upregulated when you hear these sad stories from people. Another thing was she gave me a technique where you push against the wall. So if you actually push really hard against the wall standing up for like 10 seconds, then break it off, and then 10 seconds again, and then a third time. It's actually the same as going for a run around the block. It completely resets and takes the energy out of you. So we came up with all these techniques. And, I have learned so much from her. I remember one of the first things that she said to me, which really resonated, was she was like, Josie, the world is your classroom and you're just learning. So if you see every interaction as learning, you never get really upset, or you never feel like you're a victim. You just always go, it's learning. And that really has stuck with me. And that's the way that I live. Like, I don't believe that I know it all. My God. And I don't believe that learning ever ends. Who are these people that know it all? Could I meet one of them?
Exactly.
Because I certainly don't know it all. So I think, as part of the entrepreneurial journey, if you see it all as learning, you never stop. But I think the biggest thing is it's so much of doing therapy has made me realize it's about getting out of your own way. Like if you can get to know yourself better and know how your brain works and then know where the blockages are, you can then move yourself out of your own way.
That's such a great example. Which I was talking about my experience just off air as well. As I said, sometimes we should just start recording early. About getting diagnosed with ADHD last year, and there was a really good technique that my psychologist gave to me that really helps me as well. He said I should do it 2 or 3 times a day, which again I don't always do because we can know what to do, but then actually take our own advice or take the advice we've been given sometimes is a little bit harder. But it's just really simple, like box breathing technique. You breathe in normally and then not box breathing technique. Sorry, let's cut something completely different, but breathe in normally. And then on the out breath, breathe it out as slowly and for as long as you can. And then when you get that out, breathe in normally and then breathe it out as slowly and for long as you can for 5 minutes. And every time I do that, it's like the noise and that like tension builds up is like, whoom. And all of a sudden I feel so much more calm. So I think these little things can be really important tools because I think we live in a society where I think technology has really made, I don't know if it's made people have ADHD or it's made more people feel like they have ADHD, but little things like that can go a long way if you're in these stressful situations, whether it's been someone dumping their problems on you or whether it's a high stress day in the office. Little things like that I think can really help make the journey more enjoyable.
Yeah, you know what you're doing with the out breath. So you're letting go with the out breath, but you're slowing down your heart rate. And actually, my therapist, I pretty early on worked out my own psychology, and I would go, oh, okay, am I doing this because this happened when I was a child? And am I replicating this and I'm doing this? And she was like, yep. And I went, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And she goes, okay, Josie, but just because you've realized, but you've got to change your neurobiology. So I go, how do I change my neurobiology? So the only way to change it is through the breathing. So through the breathing, you're changing your neurobiology, and you can also do it through tapping. Like tapping is clinically proven to change your neurobiology. So I do tapping. And when I had no money, my business was like so many times it's nearly gone under. I would tap for money. Money is
Wow.
flowing into my life. I can have money and be a good person. The more money that I have, the more good I can do in the world. And
Wow.
you start to program your body and change your neurobiology because so much of what we're doing is our subconscious is running the show, which is all the stories that we picked up from our parents. So I also decided what are the things from my parents that I wanted to hold on to and what are the things that I didn't want to believe. And then I reprogrammed those. I reprogrammed my subconscious to give me the life that I want because otherwise I was going to keep choosing based on replicating the past. So that's why therapy, the personal and the business is all linked. It's all the same.
What was that? You said a really beautiful thing before we went on air. Life or business is about a journey to what was it? To figure yourself out or
Yeah, it's about getting to know yourself. So the journey of life is just about getting to know yourself better. And the better that you know yourself, the better that you can surround yourself with other people who you can learn from or who have skills that you don't have. But the more that you know yourself. So a lot of people are going, oh, this person did this and this person did this. Right. And so I remember when I first started going for therapy, I would go in and I would go, oh, my kid's this or my ex-husband this. And every time she would flip it back to me. And I said to her after a while, can I ask you something? And she was like, yes. And I said, is this how it's going to work? She goes, what? And I said, every time I say something about someone, are you going to flip it back to me? She was like, and she goes, the thing is, Josie, is you can't control other people. But if you change your interaction with them, then you can change that relationship. So now, whenever anything happens, I always reflect on how did I show up in that meeting? What did I do? What would I do differently? And then I actively go, right, when I go into this situation tomorrow, I'm going to change my approach to hopefully change their approach.
yeah.
But I'm not going to try and change them because you can't. You're not that powerful.
100%. I think it's really important in business as well, the complete accountability and responsibility. If someone in your team, doesn't do something the way that you expected or the way you wanted it, it's not their fault. It's your responsibility to train them and do that in a way in which they do it the right way. So I think extreme accountability, not only in terms of your relationships and your day-to-day life, but in business is really important. On that part you were speaking about before, which is really interesting, trying to think consciously, what parts of what my parents gave me do I want to maintain and what parts do I not? I think there's so much like generational patterns and trauma that affects us. And I think for most people, a lot of that is still subconscious and it's not really quite conscious. What was the process that you went through? Is it to start making the unconscious conscious so you can have those moments where you're like, am I doing this because of that? I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, so I think it was a combination of things. So the therapy made, because you have to kind of go back to go forward, right? To know yourself, you have to know what started at the beginning. And it's not catastrophizing again, it's just information, right? And then, but also, so I did a lot of that, but I also did Tony Robbins. So I had a mentor who's a serial entrepreneur who I met on a dating app and we became friends. And he'd done a lot of different self-development work. And he said to me, Tony Robbins is definitely the best. So I did this 30-day thing that you do, and you have to do the work. So you basically listen to him every day for 30 days and then you do writing down. I think I've got ADHD as well. It took me about 90 days. I had to re-listen to it
I can relate to that
a few times. But one of the things that it does is it makes you realize what are those subconscious beliefs that are running the show. So it could be like, you might have a belief that says, if I have money, my friends won't like me. Right. So then you write that down. Then what you do is you write down all the things that are going to happen if you keep that belief. So you're always going to struggle for money. When you have kids, you're not going to be able to send them to school what you want. You're never going to pay your house off. And then you write enough things down so you go, oh God, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to think that. So then you put in a new program. So the opposite program would be that is, I can have some money and still be a great person. Right. So, and then what you need to do is actively interrupt the pattern. So what Tony Robbins does is he tells you to choose something. And I've done quite a lot of spiritual work as well. And I've got these Egyptian tuning forks, which literally are like these two metal forks that you go ting. So I used to have some in my office, some at home, and I would like ting them and put them by my ears whenever I got one of my negative beliefs, like you're not good enough. Like I was the fat kid at school. I was teased a lot. So I had a lot of self-worth issues. And whenever that you're not good enough, you're never going to be good enough would come, I would ting, and then I would put the new program in and I would do the tapping and the breathing. And affirmations, like you've got to take action. You have to throw a lot of things at it. And eventually, and I said to my therapist, she goes, you need to get some more self-love. And I go, what is self-love? And she goes, self-love is like having a bath and shutting the door and saying to your kids, I'm going to be 30 minutes, right? It's that doing something for yourself. It's going for a coffee with that friend who fills your cup and isn't, doesn't want anything from you, or, it's going to the Pilates class that you enjoyed. That's self-love. So it was kind of a combination of all of those things, but it's work. Like people, I think if you want to be successful, you've got to go in. Everyone's looking for it all out here, but it's actually all inside. And once you realize it's all you, I was like, oh, okay. So I said to her, so it's all me. Well, that's quite easy then because I can change me. But it was bloody hard trying to change other people around me. And then when I realized it was all me and I stopped trying to change anyone else, I was like, okay. So then I spent probably the last 5 years changing myself. And it's worked out pretty well.
And I think on that point of like making the unconscious conscious, when you made yourself write down the list of all the negative things that will happen, you really put the things that might have been subconscious that's easy to ignore, you make that become really conscious. And then you're like, I'm not going to continually choose to do that. I heard a theory or again, a piece of content a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this as well. I'd love to hear your take on it, whether you agree, disagree, or just what your thoughts on this is as someone that has done so much personal and spiritual work. I think it was something to the effect of you become the person like as an adult that would have protected you when you were that kid. So you become the person that would have been able to protect you in all those situations. Would you agree to a certain extent with that? Or what's your thoughts on that after going through all this work?
Yeah, so actually I've done quite a lot of inner child work, and so as part of the process, you are actually reparenting yourself. So you are advocating for yourself. So you know, my therapist talks about her. We've got to advocate for her. Like nobody advocated for her at school, right? So now when something happens and I feel nobody's advocating for me, I then advocate for myself, right? Because I'm not a little girl at school anymore who's getting bullied. So that is completely linked.
I had a dream one time. It was a really, those really strange, profound dreams that stick with you. This was a few years ago now. And I had a dream, like it was after my business and I, became successful and I changed. Like I have become everything I would have wanted to become and more. And I think like that's been an amazing thing, but I think there's also limitations to that as well in terms of always wanting to keep control over as many different things as we can. Um, I didn't meet my dad till I was 15. So I grew up with my mum and my grandparents until I was 5. So I lived there. My grandparents are from Ireland, like just absolutely like the best people I've ever come across, showered me with love, always told I could. Like I'd fall asleep in my granddad's arms and he'd carry me out to the granny flat at night. So like the best first 5 years of my life. And then my mum remarried my stepdad, who's the like father of my brother, and they're still together. And obviously like I lived with them until I was mid-20s. But so when I was 5 years old, I went from the situation where I was the apple of everyone's eye, the center of attention at all times, to moving in with my mum and my stepdad, which was fine. But then about a month, and I only found out this information now that I'm older and intrigued about this and started asking my mum more questions. We moved out with him and it was just meant to be us. And then they were going to have my brother like a year or so later. And then about a month or so after moving out, just the 3 of us, he had a previous relationship as well. And he had 3 kids from that relationship and it wasn't the best situation on with their mother. So then I went from being surrounded by my mum and my grandparents to living in a house with an older man who was a stranger and 3 older step siblings. So I went from being like having everything given to me to feeling like, I have to fend for myself. Like I'm with all these strangers. So I really like internalized a lot of that stuff for myself. And I became this person that, wanted to control all situations. And I was skinny, red hair, freckles kid. So like I wasn't one of the coolest kids at school. And I used to look at the cool kids with some sort of envy and always thinking like, oh, I want to become something that can control and would have protected me in that moment. And it brings me back to the original story. I had a dream a couple of years ago where I saw myself at that age. I would have been maybe 4 years old or something like that. And me as a little kid stretched my arms out like for a hug. And I remember like hugging myself and like, it was like the most beautiful, like profound moment. And I was like, I woke up and I'm like, what was that? But it felt so real. It felt so like, I just felt like I was everything that kid needed. I could give to him. And that was me back then. I don't know. It was just a long tangent story, but it just came to my mind and I was like, what is that moment? Like there's something there.
Well, you healed your inner child. So without actually doing the therapy, you kind of did it yourself. And that is a lot of what they do in therapy. It's about connecting you to your inner child and going, that was a part of my journey. And he went through that and that was real for him. And you know what? Him going through that made you who you are. So it's connecting the two and, and loving that part of yourself and going, maybe if you hadn't have had that experience, your life would be different to who it is now. So the two are linked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. It's like therapy isn't about feeling a victim or validating, oh, how woe is me it was. It's just like, oh, wow, that happened. And that, this is what happened because of it. And okay, cool. So let's accept that.
That's exactly spot on. And I don't know if this was that like male sort of mentality that made me not realize that. But until probably a couple of years ago when I really started, because I was big on personal development, but I was big on like building and like visualizing and all that stuff. And then it took me a few years of doing that to realize, hey, I'm like hitting a bit of a ceiling here. I need to go inwards. I didn't realize because again, I thought therapy and doing that stuff was like, oh, you only need to do that if you look on it like, oh, woe is me. I said to myself and I said to Mel up until like a couple years ago that experience that I went through didn't affect me. And it's like so obviously has bled through everything I do and everything I am. But it was just that little perspective shift that made me realize it. And I was like, oh, okay, there's so much here. Of course there's so
There's
much
so
here.
much gold there.
I
Like
know.
what's the gold in what
I know.
happened?
I know.
Like there's sure there it was painful, but was the gold?
I know.
And that's the journey is
Yeah.
going, yeah, where's the gold?
Oh, I know. Look, enough about me. People don't want to hear. Well, they do, but this is about you. I've told that story in not as much detail before, but you mentioned something before, like hearing stories of the scrappy entrepreneurs is something that you really like. And while you'd sit here today with a massive business, you started as a completely scrappy entrepreneur yourself. I would love to hear the story because I think it's so apt and fitting to what we were just talking about your first hair salon and living upstairs and showering at the pub and all that. Tell everyone where this whole journey started for you, because now they see where you are and they're like, wow, it's almost for some people feels unrelatable, but where you started was nothing fancy. It was as scrappy as it comes.
Yeah, it was totally. So yeah, we had a hair salon in Paddington and we couldn't afford to live outside of it. And we were living with Alan's mum and dad. And then we wanted to live on our own. So we ended up moving into a small room above the salon. And yeah, we had no kitchen, no bathroom. And we used to, shower at the pub down the road and we would eat out. And, we actually got burgled one time. A burglar came into the salon when we were in the bedroom and came into this door. And then got such a shock when they saw us, he fell down the stairs. So that was where we started. And actually none of the clients knew that we were living upstairs. We didn't tell anyone.
Of course.
And, we had a $40,000 loan. That was what we started the business on. But we pretty early on brought this ammonia-free color over that we'd found because Alan had such bad contact dermatitis. And I used to ring the beauty editor of Vogue every day. So it was like there was no, we were doing email. We were quite ahead and we were doing email mail outs. We were doing letterbox drops in different colors so that we could see where the people were coming from by the colors.
So smart thinking like that.
Yeah. So we knew what suburb. And then I just used to ring the beauty editor every day. And eventually the beauty editor of Vogue said to me, "Are you going to ring me every single day?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "Okay, I'll come in," because she'd said no to me about 10 times. And then she came in and we had no clients. And we got Wayne, who was our colorist, mum, to come in with a good handbag. And we put a color on her hair and we got Alan's mum. And then we colored Caroline's hair, Wayne did. And then he went outside and the phone started ringing. We had no appointments. And he was like, "It's me. You're making fake appointments." So I was like, okay. So we made these appointments. And she did this little write-up in Vogue. And then from there, we became like a beauty editor's secret. And, there was one health food store. It was called Macro. And it was in Bondi Junction. I put some signs up in there. We gave a discount to the staff. And so we started to build up from there. And in our first year, we turned over $1 million in 2000, which was a lot for a hair salon in 2000.
100%.
And, within 3 years, we had like 14 staff and we got a lot of pregnant women, people with scalp sensitivities. And then once they realized that the color performed like other color, just didn't have the smell and fumes, then the pregnant women would stay. Plus we had a great atmosphere in the salon. It was like kind of coming into our house. It was a bit of a party. And so that was where it all started. So we kept it to ourselves for 7 years. We didn't, we were so happy because we had such a good business.
Yeah.
But other salons would ring us and say, "Where can we get the product?" So eventually we brought a container load over. We put it in our garage and we started selling to other salons and it built up to about $25,000 a month doing that. And then I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe this has got legs." Okay.
Was it one salon at that point or did you open many different locations?
No, we just had one salon, but we were selling the color to other salons. Yeah. And so it just kind of started from there. And then we realized that we needed shampoos and conditioners. So we actually made the first sulfate and paraben-free shampoo. All the chemists told me it wasn't possible. And so I actually just went online, found a recipe, bought myself a bit of a lab equipment and started to make them in the kitchen.
Wow.
And then I would shake them up in the jars and go, "Oh, okay, that one's foaming. How does that feel on the hair?" And then I'd go back to the chemist and I'd go, "I don't know much, but mine seems to be working." And so that was how we got started. And I think, with the brand at the time, I was like, why is everything that's natural and low chemical, green and brown and in a health food store? And I was like, don't glamorous women also want products that are low chemical? And so that's why the packaging looks the way it is, because I was like, wanted it to look nice in the bathroom. I like pastels and yeah, so it was kind of born from there.
And how does it make you feel like we said before, you were very much a pioneer in this space to see, how big the clean beauty trend and just clean living trend in general has grown. How does that make you feel seeing that?
Yeah, I'm really happy about it because I'm, genuinely concerned about chemical overload and why people get cancer and what are the, environmental impacts of all these chemicals that are going on us. And so, yeah, I'm happy about it. I mean, we probably have the most copied hair color in the world now. And, I'm happy about it because more healthier hair for more people. There's enough room for everyone. The hair business is huge. We're a tiny part of that,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think it's great, and I think people need to become more aware about what they're doing, what they're eating, what they're feeding their children, what they're putting on their face and their head.
It's so interesting. I ask people that have launched successful brands, hey, what was it like for you when the wave of copycats came? And it's always, I was so stressed. And I knew your response to that was going to be very unique. And I think it just goes to show, I mean, I'm not inside your mind, but from the outside looking in, it's really clear that your motivations from the start weren't financial. It really was purpose driven. And I think we live in a world today in 2025 where it's cool to be purpose driven, but it's like when you can just spot the ones that are really genuine about it and they know they really do care about it. So it's a beautiful story and a beautiful journey to see what has come off the back of that.
I mean, I even had a much bigger hair care brand 3 months after we launched the color, go to the factory that made it and tell them to not supply O&M and to supply them instead. And the factory came to me and said, "What did you do to this person?" And I said, "Nothing, like nothing." And then I was like, "I've worked on this with you for the last 3 years. Like we did all," and they didn't. They
They had your
didn't.
back.
They had my back. But that's what happens. People do that. People are cutthroat. It is wild. But somebody once said to me, "You're driving a bus. You're the driver, and the front wheel is sales and marketing. Then you've got logistics on the middle wheel, and then you've got logistics and finance, and then you've got marketing on the back wheel. When you get a flat tire, don't look down at the wheel. Keep looking at where you're going." So this stuff does keep coming. I mean, over the years, like there's been a lot and it's still a lot, but I just always keep looking where I'm going and I think about what I can do, not what I can't do. And sometimes I go, "Oh, wow, that's actually quite interesting or bad. But then I just go, what am I going to do about it?"
So what was it for you? And I have these podcasts and I do research on brands, particularly in like the last 10 year, like the real e-com generation. It seems like a lot of the brands have been like, they've grown from really good marketing. It seems like for you, you didn't push the marketing to grow the brand. The brand grew. And then with that, obviously the marketing grew around that. But what do you think has been the little secret to your success? What is it that made you and O&M so successful? And like at what stage is the brand at now? Like I know there's some crazy numbers floating around, but how often does an O&M product sell these days? And what do you think that secret recipe to success was for you?
Yeah, so I think it's like you said, we were solving a problem. But to be honest, the business only really grew in the last 5 years because it took me about 10 years to get the hair color to cover gray like ammonia and PPD color does. So I took out 3 chemicals and I took out 3 chemicals that were doing a lot of the hair coloring, right? So that took me a long time to get there. So the business has only really since about 2018 been growing very fast. And but I think what it is it was a community build. So now you see all these run clubs and people are talking about community and stuff, but we were for the hairdressing community. And I've never really done a huge amount of press. Like it was never about me or the brand. It was always about the hairdresser, the community. And hairdressers are very loyal customers. It's small business. We were small business as well. And also hairdressers like really look out for each other. It's a community where we all come together. We love an awards ceremony, like any chance for a heel and a sequin. We're out there, and a big hairdo. So, I actually had a former partner who had built some award-winning houses, and he was like, "I have never seen awards things like this."
Yeah.
He was like, hairdressers cry and they thank their team like it's the Oscars. So I think inadvertently, we built this community just through wanting to help people. And for example, during COVID, the first month, we lost 70% of our business straight away. And we had, I think, about 20 people working with us at the time. And I said to them, we're all going to stick together. But what we did was, they were like, what are we going to do? And I said, we're going to come out to the hairdressing community every day. So we got a personal trainer. We got hairdressers around the world doing exercise classes with O&M bottles in their gardens. And we kept the community. And every day we were looking at all the financial advice for small business. We were coming out and talking about that. We were advocating for small business. And we were also, hairdressers became a captive audience. So we'd never done any Instagram advertising. So we started to do that. We started to send out sample kits. So the business actually went up during COVID, and hairdressing became an essential service. People became more concerned about their health. Plus also the products worked. So it became like a no-brainer. Oh, okay, these products work exactly like the high chemical ones, but they don't smell and fume. So it was all like, I don't know. So, but it's definitely the community. And it's that we're just normal people that had a go. We roll the dice. We don't get it right all the time. You can call me. One of the things I love about hairdressers is they tell you when they love it. They tell you when they hate it. They're like the most opinionated, love it or hate it people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And so, so it's that. I think we inadvertently were one of the first brands to build a really strong community.
So who is your customer today? Because you're in retail, you sell to salons, D2C. Like what is the main business model, so to speak, for O&M? Are you selling to the salons, or is it, obviously you are, but what's the bigger picture look like?
Yes, so it's funny actually, because I've listened to a few of your podcasts with founders that are going into retail and doing super scrappy things. And we went, when we first did the shampoos, we went into Selfridges, and I actually flew to London and cold called into Selfridges multiple times until they met with me. And then I've got pictures of me in 2010 in Selfridges by my little O&M stand.
Wow.
And so I've done every retailer you can think of: Selfridges, Sephora, Space NK, Neiman Marcus. We pulled out of them all because our aim is to supply professional hairdressing salons, front door to back door. We realized that was at the core of the brand. And whilst getting into those retailers gave us some really good visibility, it's not at the heart of the brand. The heart of the brand was the hairdressers. So now we only sell through professional salons. We don't go through any retailers. And it's been brilliant.
And I think it's because we have a big e-com listenership as well. And I think because we live in the world where everything's D2C and everything's retail, hearing people tell stories like that, and you've grown so quickly and so exponentially, particularly the last 8 years or 7 years in 2018, and then the last 4 years where you've sort of doubled the business almost every year, 400% growth in 4 years, that you can think about things differently and you don't have to follow the crowd. And how often was it, I was talking or I read something, how often do you guys sell a product now?
It's every 8 seconds. Yeah.
Every 8 seconds you sell a product, and you're going through these avenues. You're not following the crowd, trying to get into retailers. It just goes to show you build a great product for a specific group of people that solves a genuine problem, and the people will come. I think people try and force it all the time now. Do you see that with new brands that launch?
People are trying to go viral, right? It's look, we'd often go, one of the biggest opportunities is for me to do more content on my platforms, right? But I need to get out of my own way with that one, so we'll see about that, right? And then, I do some, but not that much. And then another one is the direct to consumer is a big opportunity, but we haven't really focused on that because we haven't needed to. The business is growing so much, and we're loyal to the hairdresser. We want to send people into salons, and then they've got their customer. They're also an expert, right? So they're making an expert recommendation. I think, one of the things that I've noticed over the last few years is that hairdressers are becoming like rock stars. I often say to my friends, being a top colorist is like being a Michelin star chef.
Yeah.
It's like we're the grocer, we're providing the color, but it's all in the hands of the user. And, so our model is that we are all sales through education. So we use these experts and we pay them to show people how to use our color. And within that, we're raising the level in education. last year did the largest hairdressing education event that's ever been thrown here. It's called Made for Originals. We didn't call it O&M because I was like, it's not about the brand, it's about the hairdresser. It's Made for Originals. We made the hairdressers the star. We took over White Bay Terminal and we spent $750,000. Like, you've never seen an event like it. We had 750 hairdressers. It was huge, and we're doing it again this year. And I just love rolling the dice. Like, the team were like, do you realize how much this is going to cost? And I was like, I don't care. I want to celebrate, and we're doing it again this year. And actually TikTok are sponsoring it, and Dyson.
Wow,
and
that's so cool.
because so many hairdressers are, doing so well on TikTok. And I just think, like, why should it be so underrated? Like, we're wearing it on our heads every day. Like, isn't our hair one of the most important things to us?
100%. And I think really treating it like the art that it is, because as I said, I explained my story. Oh, there's a difference between cutting hair and like styling hair and like being an expert. And I think like the amount of skill that they have and the dedication they have to their craft is underappreciated. And I only realized this in the last year when I actually started working with proper professionals, and it's blown my mind. So 100%, 100%. What's the difference then? And again, forgive me that I'm not as clued on about the head space as you. The difference between, because you're already selling through salons, going through the professionals, like O&M, and then the O&M Original Mineral Pro. What was the strategy or thought behind that? And is it very different to the other line of range of products?
Yeah, so the Pro, so all of the hair color is professional only.
Mm-hmm.
So on the Pro website, you're a hairdresser, you can log on and buy anytime they're at wholesale price. And then the other one, originalmineral.com.au, is our direct to consumer. It's a very small part of the business, and we don't even do a lot of ads with it. And I get agencies ringing me every single day. And, we don't want to cannibalize our own customers, but we also need to be available, right? So it's a very small part of the business, but the Pro side is a very fast growing part of the business because it's changing where we're in the age where everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. People are working independently. There's lots of independent hairdressers, and being an independent hairdresser is actually seen as something aspirational now, rather than it used to be like a home hairdresser was somebody like hiding in their home. It's not like that now. I'm independent. So they can order 24/7. So that's what it is. It's just a wholesale. You've got to be a hairdresser.
You've really done things in your own way, and like, you're clearly seeing the benefits of that. Is there I'm assuming you get a lot of advice thrown at you.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm open to it. Like, I'm like an open vessel for ideas and advice, and I'm just learning. And I do look at, wow, like I was listening to your podcast, and I've, been listening to the people that have scaled really big and gone viral and stuff, and thinking, some of the ambassadors that we have gone viral, like huge, and they're using the product. But our account has never gone viral, right? But we've got a really solid business, and we've got a really great community. So it's just, there's parts of me that go, wow, I wonder if I could double it again in the next 12 months.
Like, that's where
if I got this agency, like, I don't know, is there this magic agency that just knows the e-com so well? But I don't know. And then is there, there's ways to bring the salon in as well. Like, salons are only selling on average to 15% of their customers. So I'm always thinking, like, the other 85%, could we direct market to them and then give them a cut? Like, there's so many things that you could do. But, there's also only so many hours in the day, and we've got 50 people in our team. And if you ask anyone that works at O&M, because we do tell people, like, the values of the business are clean, kind, and original. They're the values behind the product. And then we have the values of the way that we operate, which is like, we are entrepreneurial. We're fast-paced and courageous. We fail. So we have all these things. And when we do the induction with people and they see this, they go, yeah. But then when you're actually in it, and everything's fast-paced, right? And you've maybe come from a corporate, and there is a limit, right? And so that's probably been one of the biggest challenges for me, because when I could do it all myself, I could just do it all myself. And then I had a few other people who were kind of like me, but the culture of scale up is not for everyone.
Yeah. What has been the biggest challenges that the scale up phase has brought you?
Well, initially it was the money, and I got investment. So the business started growing really a lot in 2016, 17, and we started to come on the radar of a lot of private equity firms. And I went all around the UK. I saw Boots, I saw Unilever, I was in New York, I saw some big private equity firms, and I learned a lot through that process. And so that was probably the biggest challenge, because even though the business had got to, at that stage, I think about 8 million, all of my money was in the warehouses, right? So all of your money's in stock. So you go, oh, we're growing so fast, but then all of your money's in stock. And there's just so many challenges with that. And I, had my house up, for an overdraft. I was doing debt factoring. Do you know what debt factoring is?
I know about it. I don't understand the mechanisms as how it works, but it's not something I.
Yeah, so it's pretty good to get you to the next stage, but basically they factor the money. So say a salon would buy $1,000, they would give me $800 of that straight away, but then the invoice would come from the bank and the salon would have to pay them. So if you imagine I had, say, then 400 customers here, the bank is chasing my customers for the money, right? So then it was like I was getting the money straight away and it was helping me bankroll the business. You can also factor the stock, where you buy like $500,000 worth of stock that's worth, say, $1.5 million to the business, and you can factor that. But all of that money stress is probably the biggest challenge. And that was partly why I got the investment. And also because people were starting to copy the color, I thought, I've got to scale the business before somebody just takes my idea and makes it really big. And actually what I've realized is nobody could do that anyway, because nobody's in love with it like I am. No, it's not in anyone's heart. And even the people that have copied it, they've got a car they can't drive.
Yeah.
They've got a story they can't tell. It's not authentic. It's like an add-on next to an ammonia color. So it's confusing. Like, okay, so you're saying that you're ammonia PPD free, but you've still got that in another range. So it's like, it's not authentic. But anyway, so I got the PE investment in 2019. I ended up going with a firm. So after I did all this traveling, I came back and my mentor was like, we need to go on another trip. And I was like, I don't want to go on another trip. I don't want to see any more of these firms, because it's quite intimidating as well. And only 2% of private equity goes to women, right? So straight away, you're like, you're a minority. And then, back then I was an alien. Now women entrepreneurs are being celebrated. But when I started, I used to go into distributors and they go, Josie, we love your product. We think you're a bit ahead of your time. Who owns the company? Like all the time. So anyway, I got an email that came through LinkedIn from a guy called Leighton, and he was like, we're an American private equity firm. We have an office in Sydney. We'd like to meet with you. And so I met with them, and they came in and they were like, they looked like me. They were like in jeans and T-shirts, and they were kind of like surfers. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I later found out that Leighton was an intern who was not supposed to be hitting anyone up, and had basically made an appointment for me with Matt Seidler, who's one of the partners he's actually the son, like one of the founders of this private equity firm. And he was in trouble for making this appointment with this hair color brand. And so anyway, so they ended up making an investment in the business, and they took a large minority. And I remember one of the first things that we did the meeting, and I said, this is my spiel. And then they did their spiel. And then I said, can you tell me about the deals that went wrong? And they were like, Josie, no one's ever asked us about that. And I said, okay, that's okay. I can wait. I'm sure some stuff must have gone wrong. And then they were like, okay, we had 2 deals that went wrong, and we took a majority share of the company, and the founder became disengaged. So they were like, we look for a highly engaged founder. We take a large minority and we help the business grow. And so I still control the board. They can't sell or wind up the company or take more investment or do anything. And they're such nice people. Like, I completely lucked out. And I got a couple of references from other female founders that they'd invested in, and they are the nicest people. They're called Seidler Equity Partners. If anyone else is looking for a firm, and I think they've got like 11 investments in Australia now. They have 65 investments, and they just go, Josie, what do you need?
Yeah.
And just, they help me. They don't
So
talk
it was
down
more
to
than
me.
just the money. Like they
No,
were
they
also
helped
strategic
me.
partners that could add value in your growth journey as well.
Yeah, so they brought in a lot of structure, helped me with a lot of job descriptions, interviewing key people, roles, responsibilities, all of the financials. like board packs. You know, we're fully audited now by KPMG for like 9 months of the year. I mean, I could not have navigated any of that. So there was a lot of strategic help that helped grow the business. So yeah, I mean, and they super smart. They partnered me with a girl called Monica, who's like in her 20s, who's a finance whiz, who's worked in investment banking, but she never talks down to me. You know, she always helps me.
Yeah.
She can explain things in a way that I understand, and they get how to deal with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And a lot of PE firms don't. I have got a lot of friends who've had very different experiences.
I want to speak about some of those different experiences because, as you know, if you've listened to a few of these podcasts, what I do like to talk about is some of the challenges that businesses go through and that you went through. One I'd love to speak about because it seemed like it was such a chaotic, hectic time in your life, inside and outside of business, was when you launched I think it was the original version of the PPD free product and everything that went down after that. Could you talk us through that period of your life and how you dealt with it?
Yeah, so if you imagine I've got this ammonia-free hair color and I've got this little warehouse in Botany, and I'm getting calls from anyone who hasn't been able to color their hair for like 30 years going, oh, can I use your hair color? And I'm like, why haven't you been able to color your hair? And it turned out that most people were allergic to PPD, which is a black hair dye. And if you Google PPD allergy, you'll see people's faces swell up. They go into anaphylactic shock. Like, it's really full on. People have died from it. So anyway, I thought, wow, my God, I've got to take this chemical out. So without really thinking about it too much, I went to America. I found a manufacturer who had made another big multinational, global, huge brand, made their hair color. And I said to them, I know you made this brand. Could you make this color for me? So they said that they could. And I spent 4 years with them. And to their credit, they tried really hard to make the color. And but it just didn't work. They couldn't stabilize the product. It was oxidizing. Like, so many things went wrong. And the business nearly went under multiple times. And one time I did a whole tour of US distributors with them, and weird stuff was going on. I had this guy, Rob, who was working for me, and he was ringing me. He goes, Josie, like, the color's going pink. It's not covering gray. It smells weird. So I said to the manufacturer, I was like, you've got to level with me. Like, what's going on? And they said, okay, the tube at the end, it gets turned over and crimped, and there's a glue in it. And they said air is seeping in there. The glue isn't tight enough. The adhesive isn't working. I said, well, can you just tell me, what do you mean? And they said, the whole shipment is like a ticking time bomb. It's all going to go off. So anyway, so I just immediately turned around, went to the airport, got on a plane home. And then I said to them, how quickly can you make it with the new tube? So they were like, we can make 4 shades a week. And we had like 90 shades. So I started to slice shades open and see which ones were oxidizing first. And then we basically were just really honest with the salons, and we said, if you see something that's coming out that is a weird color, throw it away. But it was probably one of the most stressful periods of my life. And my financial controller quit because nobody would pay, right? Because, of course, the product was not working, so nobody would pay. My national sales manager quit because nobody would pay or nobody would buy. And then I just rang all of the customers and explained what was happening. But eventually, after 4 years of trying to get it right, like, they kept trying to rectify, but it didn't work. My head of education quit, and he said, I can't do this. I can't be between the customer that's unhappy and the manufacturer that's denying that there's a problem. So anyway, then I was on my own again. And so then I got on a plane and went to Italy because I'd heard that a lot of hair color was made in Italy. And at the time I was going through quite a messy divorce as well. And my children were like 1 and 6. And there was a lot going on. And to be honest, looking back at it, I don't know why I just didn't get a job. Like, why at this point did I not get a job and just, I don't know, make my life a bit easier? But I went to Italy, and I eventually found a woman called Julia who speaks hardly any English, and I speak no Italian. And she said to me, I've got 40 shades, and if you like them, I will make it for you. So I went back and I went to Paul, the colorist who had just quit, into his salon. And I said to him, I walked in, he turned around and he looked at me and he goes, what are you doing here? And I said, Paul, I'm moving the colour to Italy. And he shouted across the salon, "You're effing crazy." I said, "I know, but you're the only one who knows what went wrong. So you're the only one who can tell me if this is any good." And so I said to him, "I'm going to pay you this. Just, will you do it?" And then he rang me and I said, "But do one thing for me. I want you to half head test it against ammonia colour. If it doesn't work like ammonia and PPD colour, I don't want to do it anymore." So he rang me about a week later and he said, "You better come and have a look." And I thought, "Oh no, it doesn't work." And he goes, "I've got Maureen. She's got white hair. I've put O&M next to an ammonia colour and it's covered the grey better than the ammonia colour." And so it was then that we knew we were on something, and that was in like 2016. So, I went through a lot, and that is the tip of the iceberg, right? Like I went through a lot, and I don't know why I carried on in some ways, but I did. And I think I partly did it. My therapist says it's because my dad never gave up. Like he had cancer for 10 years. He carried on working till a year before he died. He never moaned about it. He never gave up. And before he died, he said to me, "You'll be very good in your own business." And I was 17 and I was like, "What?" And I think, we're all honoring our parents, but he never moaned and he never complained. And I thought, I'm not going to moan or complain either, but I'm going to keep going. So yeah, the stuff does keep coming for all the entrepreneurs out there. Like, but it's okay. Like I learned so much in that.
Were you aware at the time, oh no, this is something your therapist said, like, because it sounds like in more ways than one, your world is falling apart all around you. What were you, like, consciously in that moment, if you can try and think back to that, what did keep you going? Because like you said, you should have quit. Would have been way easier if you got a job. Do you remember what it was, that burning thing inside of you that just wouldn't quit?
Well, I think it was partly, it was a lot of it was for my kids as well, right? I had a 1 and a 6-year-old and I was the primary parent and I wanted to give them the life that they deserve. And so it was that, but it also was, wanting to prove it to myself for all those other people that said that I wasn't good enough or that I felt wasn't good enough. You think people make you feel not good enough, but it's actually you, right? So I wanted to feel good enough. And I think that a lot of my validation, rightly or wrongly, did come through O&M. So there is a lot of self-worth that's built through building something from nothing.
On that point of wanting to prove it to yourself and prove it to everyone else, we spoke about like a lot of those things you've had to unlearn and like the work you've had to do. What do you think was one of the things that you can pinpoint that you had to unlearn from like your previous life of career that enabled you to become the sort of founder that could lead O&M into the business that it became on the other side of that really tumultuous period?
Yeah, so I think it was the low self-worth. So low self-worth is quite good in a way because it makes you try harder.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a bit of low self-worth than be arrogant, right? And think that I'm too good. But you've got to have, without having ego, having self-worth. The thing that I had to learn was to see myself as other people saw me, rather than to still think that I was not good enough or I'd made all these mistakes and that made me incompetent in some way so my therapist actually was like, you need to start to see yourself how other people see you. And that's quite a hard thing to do. But once you can do it, you start to project that.
Mm.
And then people start to follow you.
So tell me, was there a moment during this whole experience that the mission behind O&M felt like it became personal?
Um, I know it's all been personal for me. Yeah, no, it's all personal. My dad's in there, my kids are in there, my ex-husband's in there. Like, it's all personal and it's all, I want people to live healthier lives. I want to advocate for hairdressers. I want to be a good person. I want to wake up every day and feel like I'm doing something good. And I want to contribute. So yeah, no, it's all purpose for me.
I love
Yeah.
that so much. And have you ever, it's a really common thing for entrepreneurs to get those moments where you feel like an imposter and you get imposter syndrome. One, have you ever felt that? And then in the periods where that voice does come up, if you have, what do you do? What do you say to yourself to get out of those moments?
Yeah, gosh, all the time. I work from home mostly remotely and we've got 50 people, and it's largely because I get overwhelmed because there's a lot of questions coming my way. And yeah, I mean, I always joke about it, like, who put me in charge? Like, like, oh my God, because I'm a floaty creative, right? I'm all big picture, but I'm, quite floaty. So yeah, but I do know that I've worked really hard and I've earned my stripes and I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also got through them. So I now have that kind of behind me where I feel like I can answer any question, I can fix anything. And, I deserve to be here. But I'm never going to be that person on social media that talks about all of my credentials. I mean, it's just not who I am.
Yeah.
But if I could help somebody, I would, and people do ask me for a lot of advice. And I have coached a lot of people like behind the scenes and, I would help anyone. One of my biggest values is success for myself with others. So, and we have a team equity pool within O&M so that the team also have shares in the company. And yeah, you don't want to be on your own.
No, not at all.
And you can't do it on your own. You can't. You've got to have the people that are crazy enough to go with you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this off the back of all that discussion. What do you think was the hardest personal truth that you had to confront going on this journey?
I think the hardest personal truth was realizing that it was all me, because I was blaming other people or situation or whatever, because we're all choosing, right? And I remember Catherine saying to me, the people are going to keep coming. It's about how you play with them. And then so realizing it's all me and then being the type of person that I wanted to attract, because you do attract people that are similar to you. So over the years, I've changed a lot, and now I am starting to attract a different type of person into my sphere. So it is hard to realize it's all you, because we do want to blame other people. But when you realize it's all you, you've got so much power to create the life that you want. You can just literally design your life because it's all you.
You said like, and 100% no business that's grown to your size or any size can be done alone, but also you've done this journey, the majority of this journey as a solo founder, right? And that is really impressive. And you're not anyone at all that smells like arrogance or would want to put that all on yourself and be like, I'm this champion that built all this. But when you think back and reflect, and that's what I love to do on this podcast at times, is reflect at how far you've come. If you think about that woman who, lived in that tiny little room with no kitchen, no shower, above that one single salon, to the life you live now with a business worth over $100 million, with a beautiful beachfront property in Tamarama. When you wake up in the morning, you can see the coast. I won't embarrass you and say how much that property's worth, but it's a very, very beautiful property. Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, how did I end up here?
Yes, no, often. I only moved there in October actually, and yeah, I do. But I also know how I got there, right? And I also think a lot of people wouldn't have gone through what I went through. They wouldn't. It's been a lot, right? And it's still a lot. And not everyone would want to go through that. So I do think that part of being an entrepreneur is your resilience to pain. Like, how much pain can you actually take? And how much can you push through it, and how much can you scrape yourself off the floor? So, I actually now know that I deserve it,
Yeah.
and I still think the more money you have, the more good you can do in the world. Like,
Absolutely.
it's still part of who I am. But I'm super grateful. Like, I practice gratitude every day. But I don't think that I was lucky. I think, if anything, I dealt with a lot of obstacles. But Oprah once said something which really inspired me, which was, she said, there is no luck. There's only preparation and being ready for the opportunity when it comes along. So I have been ready for the opportunity, and opportunities everywhere, because I'm an open vessel to it. So my job, and actually I was talking about it today. I had breakfast with my investor. They were like, your job is just to bring the opportunities and then funnel the ones that we're going to do. But I know that you have a lot of things going on, and I am a very entrepreneurial person. Like I could start a lot of other businesses, but early on I realized you've got a hammer and a nail,
Mhm.
and I am trying to hit that nail as hard as I can. And if you've got two nails, you're going to deaden the blow of the
Mhm.
hammer. So to any entrepreneurs, I would say so many opportunities are going to come, but try and hit that nail with that hammer.
That's a lesson I've learnt myself. So I would definitely say she's spot on with that. Spreading yourself thin, I think, is definitely not the right decision to do, especially in the first 5 to 10 years of your journey. I think there comes a time and place. I'm the sort of person that, couldn't be told things until you get the experience the lesson yourself. I'm the sort of person that bites off more than he can chew, not realizing I'm biting off more than I can chew, but then I'm not a quitter. So I'm like, I'm just going to learn to chew like hell. But with all the context of what you've been through and your journey and all the achievements, what's the moment or the experience or the achievement, the accolade, whatever it comes to mind that you're most proud of?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, that's quite a hard question. To be honest, I don't know that I'm proud. That's not how operate.
Mhm.
I just I maybe okay, if I'm proud of one thing, it is the community. It's that I know so many hairdressers. Like people often say to me, "Who do you know?" And I go, "I don't really know that many people. I know every hairdresser."
Yeah.
So I think it's the community and the uplift that I'm probably most proud of. But yeah, kind of money and things and stats and stuff is not really
It's
what
not
make
you.
me proud. I'm proud that I've got two kids that are well balanced and
Mm.
good kids, and I'm proud that I know so many hairdressers and so many good people.
I just like we know when I met, like when you met it, when you walked in today and I met you and I just said I can't wait to talk about like this journey. It's just so inspiring to hear your journey and the way you are as a human, and that it's not about all those things. So thank you so much for sharing all that. I want to ask you a few more things off the back of that really challenging period we spoke about just before. I know you say all that turned around, right, and things did change. What happened to your life? I think it was around 2015 that things started to shift for you. You got through the worst of that period, going through a massive divorce, experiencing all those issues and having so many customers that you'd work so hard to earn their trust, kind of like to lose all that in one go. What was the things that turned all that around for you?
Well, it was when we did the color and finally the product worked and the product issues were done. So, I mean, of course, life is always full of issues, but like 95% of my issues with the product were done. We had this great color that was a clean formula with no smell, no fumes. And then people became more interested in clean beauty. And then when I got the investment, obviously selling 46% of the business, I had a business partner that I bought out. But also, I was able to financially pay off, you know, the loans that I had, and just like the balance sheet was a mess of, I kind of cleaned up the balance sheet, and I got a little bit of money for myself as well. And it just, like, psychologically, it's just completely different. And then a lot of money got injected into the business. So when you get investment, generally some of the money you take off the table, but a lot of it goes into the
Yeah.
business to grow to the business. So that just really changed. And then even just having a business partner who really liked me, who had a skill that I had that I didn't have and could give me advice, because the other business partners that I'd had, really didn't rate me at all. So it was very difficult. It was a very difficult relationship. So I think that really made a big difference. And then when the business started to grow, it was just completely different, and customers were happy, and we were getting new customers in new countries and new distributors. And then it becomes like a different game, and
Yeah.
people want to work for you. And then, we kind of became the cool brand. And I don't even know how to do that, because I was never the cool person at school, or,
Yeah.
and so it sort of took on a life of its own.
When was the moment, because I know you've spoken about it before, that you realized that you needed to become your own best friend?
Oh yeah. So that was during all the bad times, because, we can really talk badly to ourselves. Oh, you look a bit fat today, and oh my God, your hair's looking awful. And actually I read a book called Mirror Work, and It's about, you wouldn't be friends with somebody that spoke to you like that, and yet we do it to ourselves. So I realized the only way I was going to get through all of these, because I was making the bad choices, right? I was choosing the manufacturer. I was staying there for 4 years. I mean, I didn't need to stay for 4 years of that. I was choosing the business partners who didn't like me. I was, but what I started to do was go, well done, Josie. Well done, Josie. No matter what I did. And I remember as well, like I've got this kinesiologist, Jackie, she actually was the one who introduced me to the Egyptian tuning forks, the tingers as I call them. And before I got the investment, she said to me, what do you want to do with the business? And I said, I need to get some investment. And she said to me, how much do you want to get? So give you the backstory of, I'm not really I'm not really driven by the numbers. I didn't really know what the value of the business was. I not really into detail. I just sell as much as I could. So I told her the number that I wanted, which was quite a large number. And she said to me, I need you to look in the mirror every day and go, I'm a multimillionaire. I was like, I can't. I can't. She was like, I need you to do it every day. And so I did it every day. And I did the well done, Josie. Well done, Josie. And when Seidler made the offer for the investment, on the nose, they offered the number that I had told her. And I rang her and I was like, Jackie, they gave me that number. They offered that number. She goes, of course they did. You aligned yourself for it. You believed it. You looked in the mirror every day. Of course you did.
Wow. And how long, because people, it's not like you don't do those affirmations, look at yourself in the mirror, the next day you wake up and you believe it. How long was that period of building that until you really, truly inside yourself felt like, no, I am that person. I am worth that.
You've kind of got to do it all, right? You've got to do that. You've also got to do the work with working out what are your self-limiting beliefs. So it was probably at least 2 years of work. There's also a really good guy on YouTube called Brad, and he does tapping, which is EFT tapping that I was talking about. And I used to follow his tapping. So he's got like tapping for money, like tapping. I've been tapping for world peace the last few days. I don't know. And so I've followed his tapping a lot. I mean, there's so much on YouTube. But what you're actually doing, it's kind of like neurolinguistic programming. And like Jackie, my kinesiologist, a lot of it is like repeating after her. Like I release the emotion of feeling afraid, transform it into safe. You're programming your brain to give you the life that you want. But it's like going to the gym. You can't just do it. You got to keep going. You got to do it every day. The work is never done. You got to keep the tapping and breathing. You find what your thing is. Is it that you wake up and you journal? Like, what is it? Is it that you repeat the affirmations? Like, what is it? And, in the height of when I was at my most stressed and I was traveling for work and stuff, I used to listen to affirmation tapes whilst I was sleeping around money. Money flows easily into my life. I always have enough money because also, like, there's another book that had quite an impact on me. It's called Loves Money, Loves You by Sarah, I think the author is. And she talks about money in the first person. And she's like, why are you repelling me? Did your parents tell you weren't going to have any of me? Right. And it's so good. And I was like, oh my God, I have been like repelling, making my life harder, thinking I had to work so hard, and once it's again that whole thing of realizing that it's all you, but it's also knowing you deserve it.
Something you just said made that something click for me as well, because my parents and my mum never said those words to me, but their lifestyle and their thoughts and what they worried about said that to me, that you will never have much of it, that it'll always be hard to come by. And I think it still in some ways affects me today, even though I've made millions and millions and millions of dollars. So what's that book called? I'm going to have to
I think it's called Love Money Loves You. So it's about loving yourself. So,
wow.
And it's also about how having more money, you can do more good in the world, right? And so it's changing your psychology around that. But yeah, so you could be subconsciously limiting the amount of money you got. So say as well, most people only ever have enough money to pay their bills. I've got to pay my rent because they've got the must list. The must list, I've got to pay my rent. I've got to, get school uniform, like whatever it is, right? So most people only have enough for what's on the must list. So you just got to add to the must list. I must have savings. I must pay off my house in 5 years or whatever it is, right? You just got to change the must list.
And I think that programming's all around us. Like sometimes me and Mel will sing the songs like I got to work because I got bills to pay as a funny, catchy song. But like, no, we don't want to say those words because those words have power, right? And that's what we got to like, words have power and thoughts have power. And if you can change your thoughts and you can change the information you take into your world, whether that's the friends you're hanging out with, the shows you're watching, the books you're reading, if you start by changing the input into your world, it really slowly but surely starts to bleed out into the way you think and the way you see the world and the way you see opportunities. So I think it's spot on, everything you've been saying. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but I'll leave it with two final questions for you. One question I think it'd be remiss of me not to ask while I've got the queen of clean in the building. Outside of just hair care in your world, what are some other things that you've done to clean up your life and remove toxicity or the negative impacts of technology or those sorts of things? Because I imagine you've done a lot more of that for your own life personally outside of hair care. Are there any other things you've cleaned up that you think people should consider doing to help with their own health?
Yeah, so I don't use AirPods, right? I've got the old-fashioned cords because there's more radiation than in a microwave going straight into your ear. So I would say, so no AirPods. My Wi-Fi turns off at night because I don't want to sleep with all of that. I also have a lot of crystals around my house because crystals absorb that energy. I do earthing. So I wake up every morning, I put my feet in the earth. So that lets go of the negative ions. We don't have enough salt. Like I drink salt as soon as I get up. I'm careful about skincare because, as I said, like the forehead and the scalp is, what's going on is in here. And I use a free from brand that is largely based on olive oil because if you're going to eat it, you can put it on your skin. Non-toxic cleaning products, even washing. Because we've got the clothes on. There's so much as well that can come. All these leggings that we're wearing, girls wear cotton underwear underneath. Because you don't want all that plastic near your bits.
Polyester.
Yeah,
it's
do you know
like
what I mean?
petrochemicals.
Yeah, so just wear cotton underwear. My kids, there's a lot of eye rolling at me. I'm sure when they're older, they'll
get
like,
it.
I've got an essential oil for everything and I've got a vitamin for everything. And I've done DNA tests on my kids. I know exactly what their DNA is. I take supplements, but with me, it's all based on blood tests. I like science. I'm not just going to take something because I liked the ad or whatever. So I think the body needs certain things and there's so much science now. So I'm quite into longevity. I take NAD, but be scientific about it, right? You can go to the GP and get so many blood tests. My GP goes, okay, what do you want? I give him a list like this. And then I go to a nutritional biochemist who helps me read it. And I've done like hair mineral tests, metal detoxes. But I love life and I want to live. I've got an infrared sauna at home.
Great.
Ice
So do we.
bathing. You do. Yeah.
Sure you're not cooking on Teflon?
No, my God, no. You've got to wipe the sweat off. So you need the third towel or whatever when you're in there. Because what happens, the pores opens, the toxins come out. If you leave it on there, they go back in. So they actually say that you should, if you're sweating, you should only sweat for 7 minutes, come out, completely shower off, then go back in.
Oh, wow.
But don't leave it on, take it off.
I'm glad I asked that because I knew I'd get so much out of you. We just bought those little things. I don't know if you have one. There's a brand called Airs Tech and they're like some sort of a crystal compound thing that you can, there's one that you stick on your phone and it like absorbs a lot of that like radiation and the negative, like whatever it is. I'm not as clued up on this as you. And there's just so many, like we're surrounded by so much technology, but humans, like we didn't evolve with all this around, like Wi-Fi around us at all times. Like I don't think the average person understands how much that's affecting a like biological human like person.
Yeah, it's true. And it's also, you need to let your central nervous system switch off. So one of the things that my therapist got me to do, which maybe you could try, because I imagine that you don't take a lot of downtime, but at least just 5 minutes a day, get a cup of tea, like not a coffee, it's a stimulant, and just stare at the trees. Right? And then you need to build up to like 20 minutes and you watch what happens. You will start yawning, your body will start relaxing. So you we're like this all the time. We're either scrolling but you've got to let your central nervous system switch off. And then you watch what happens to you, like how you feel around your business. And so I do a bit of that, like staring at the trees.
That would be like, because every time we go away and we're surrounded by nature and trees, we always come back feeling like brand new. And we've been looking, so we're in Newtown now, which is like the most hectic location that you could be. So much information, so much noise, so much to do at all the time. And that was great when I moved there 5 years ago and I bought my place. But now we're looking at places like Bowral and like Kurrajong and these areas would just feel called to be around, you know, nature and trees. And I think that technique that you gave, I'm definitely going to try and do that, because whenever I do that just in different experiences, I feel that so clearly. So like incorporating that into my routine is a massive one. So thank you for that. Final question for you. You're such an icon, right? So many people in the space know and look up to you, and I'm so inspired by you after researching you and meeting you. What's something that not many people know about you?
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm a super simple person. Like I'm a middle-aged dog lover, you know, like I've got my 2 dogs. Yeah, I don't know I don't know that there's anything particularly secret about me. I can't really cook. But I'm actually just a super simple person. I sometimes really dislike social media because I think, you know, it can make you look like you're up yourself or whatever. And I'm just not like that. And I'm super happy just being who I am and having a simple life. Doing something good in the world. So I'm sorry that's nothing really
No,
new.
that's perfect. And I don't think anyone that would spend more than 10 seconds with you would think you're in any way one of those up yourself people. Where's the best place to find both your business and yourself? Because I know, like you said, you're not someone who seeks out press, but I'm sure you've had those conversations with your team. Let me tell you, you're an amazing storyteller. You're an amazing communicator. I think should you choose to do any more of that in the next few years, I think it's going to work really well for you. So where's the best place if people want to follow along on your journey, they can find you and the brand online?
So on Instagram, we're Original Mineral is our O&M Instagram, and then I'm Original Queenie, and our hairspray is called Original Queenie, and
Okay.
it's in a pink can. Pass me the Queenie, and so I just called my Instagram that.
I
So
love it.
Original Queenie, and I'm mainly on Instagram, but LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere. Hairdressing salons, you'll find me.
Any hairdresser listening or
Yeah.
stylist or whatever, I'm sure they'll know you. But we'll put, for those that don't already know where to find you, we'll put your links in the show notes or in the YouTube description. So again, I can't thank you enough. This hour, 20 minutes has flown by. As I said, I could talk to you all day because I love your stories. I love your perspectives and your mindset. So thank you so much, Josie. I really do appreciate it. And good luck with everything you do in the future. I'll be wishing you the best and cheering you on for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor and share this with them, and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.